I never imagined that one day I would be sitting here, in this elegant Manhattan apartment that once seemed like a distant dream, about to share the story of how I lost everything I had built and, amazingly, recovered every last bit. It all started 4 years ago in 2021. I was 28, fresh out of New York University with a master's degree in cybersecurity. Determined to prove myself in a predominantly male industry that rarely took women seriously, unless they made themselves impossible to ignore, I took a job at Imperium Core, a mid-sized software company based in Brooklyn. They built secure frameworks for enterprise clients. Nothing revolutionary, just routine. But I wasn't there to play it safe. The CEO, Cameron Tremblay, was what you might call a refined opportunist. He hadn't written a line of code in years, but he somehow managed to stay in the spotlight whenever someone else made a breakthrough. People warned me, but I didn't listen. I was too focused on proving my worth. "Don't overcomplicate it, Rogers," he'd say, dismissing my more ambitious contributions. "Just make it work." But I wasn't there just to make it work. I had a vision. So after work, I'd stay late in my tiny corner office, fueled by cold coffee and even more intense thoughts. I was building something bigger than Imperium had ever imagined. A cybersecurity AI that could do more than react. It could predict. I called it Prisma. Whereas traditional systems flagged threats after they appeared, Prisma identified them before they were launched. It studied human patterns, not just code. It learned behavior, recognized digital footprints, and detected intent. It didn't just stop attacks, it anticipated them. The crucial breakthrough came one night, just before 2 a.m. I remember it clearly because I cried when the model stabilized. Not out of frustration this time, but out of pure relief. "Still here, Ms. Rogers?" Clara, the night security guard, would ask gently. "Just working on something of my own," I would reply, always minimizing the screen. Because in technology, silence is safer. I had seen too many young developers, especially women, have their work absorbed by upper management. Their ideas suddenly rebranded under someone else's name. Their names disappeared. Their shine dimmed. So I guarded Prisma like a secret. I paid for my own servers. I used isolated systems. I never let it touch the Imperium Core mainframe, just monitoring traffic to test its predictive models. Then one day, I slipped up. During a strategy meeting, I demonstrated a small part of my concept. Not Prisma itself, just the surface structure, a starting point for the conversation. Andre's eyes gleamed like a man who had struck gold. This is what our customers need," he said. 2 months later, without a single mention of my name, Prisma, or a poorly reworked version of it, was being presented at a high-profile investor launch, and I wasn't even on the guest list. But what Andre didn't know was that I had already applied for a patent 6 months earlier. I had formed an LLC in my name and locked away Prisma's core engine under legal protections. Even the code he had access to was watermarked, authenticated, traceable. The night of the launch party, just before his demo began, the screens froze. Then a message appeared on every display. "Unauthorized use detected. Property of Rogers Technologies." The silence in that ballroom must have been deafening. The next morning, Andre wasn't the news for his big reveal. I was. Every hack attempt, every suspicious login, every anomaly, Prisma captured them all silently, flawlessly, without ever triggering an alert. I documented everything. Version histories, logs, timestamp backups on 3 separate encrypted drives. I wasn't just building innovation, I was building evidence. Because in this industry, having a brilliant idea wasn't enough. You had to be ready to defend it. Then came the moment that changed everything. It was January 2022, and I had finally completed Prisma's core engine. Not a beta, not a simulation, the real architecture. And it worked better than I ever imagined. External validation from 2 cybersecurity consultants confirmed what I already suspected. Prisma could stop 99.9% of cyber threats before they were launched. The remaining 0.1%, it neutralized in less than a second. It was a tipping point. I knew I couldn't hide it forever. So I scheduled a meeting with Andre Tremblay. Yes, he was manipulative. Yes, I had my doubts. But he was still my CEO. and a small part of me hoped he would see Prisma for what it was and help us take it to the world the right way. Thursday morning at 9:30, I walked into the conference room with my laptop, reports, security test results, everything he would need to understand what Prisma really was. Andre sat back in his leather chair as I ran the demo. His face gave nothing away. When I finished, there was a long silence. "This is interesting," he finally said. "How long have you been developing this?" "Almost 2 years," I replied. "But not during business hours. All on my own hardware, off the grid. I can show you everything. Logs, timestamps, independent checks." He held up his hand, interrupting me. "Send me everything. The full documentation. The codebase. I need to review this properly." There was something odd in his tone. Something I should have realized, but I was so caught up in the hope, the pride, the idea that maybe, finally, someone was listening. That night, I stayed up late answering his questions. Implementation details, scalability, pricing models. He asked everything and I answered, holding nothing back. I went home feeling like I was on the verge of a major breakthrough. The next morning, everything fell apart. I walked into the office and tried to log in. Access denied. At first, I thought it was a technical glitch. I tried again. Same message. Then my phone vibrated. An email from HR. "Please report immediately to the conference room on the 14th floor." I didn't panic. Not yet. I grabbed my bag and walked around the office. Coworkers looking up from their desks, their expressions confused. In the conference room, Andre was already seated with Susan from HR and 2 uniformed security guards. A thick folder sat on the table. "Lydia," Andre began, not even offering me a seat. "We have completed an internal review of your activities." He opened the folder. "It appears you violated your employment contract by developing a competing security product using company resources." "What?" "No, I didn't," I said, stepping forward. "Everything I built was done on my own time, with my own tools. I have the records." "We found source code and related files on your workstation," he continued, ignoring me completely. "I've never uploaded anything to the Imperium core network," I said. "If it's on a company machine, you put it there." "We have everything we need," Susan interrupted. Andre clasped his hands together. "You are being terminated with cause. Your termination is hereby revoked. Legal will be in touch." My stomach dropped. It didn't make sense. I'd backed up everything off-site. I'd been careful, paranoid even. And yet, somehow he had copies. It hit me then. The questions he'd asked that night, the way he'd phrased them. He'd tricked me into sending him clean files. And now he was using them to frame me. He thought it was over. He was wrong. Snippets of code, logs, timestamps, fabricated to make it look like I'd worked on Prisma using Imperium core resources. My hands went cold as I stared at the folder. Susan slid it across the desk. "This is your termination notice," she said softly, almost apologetically. "And a reminder that your non-compete agreement bars you from working in cybersecurity for the next 18 months. I shook my head. "That agreement doesn't apply. Prisma was built independently. I have receipts, timestamps, a complete paper trail." Andre interrupted with that smug smile of his. "I can, and I have Ms. Rogers. You're just a junior developer. Did you really think a project like this could belong to you?" He turned to the guards. "Escort her out. She won't need anything from your desk. It's all company property." I should have felt anger, panic, but instead, something strange washed over me. Clarity. Because what Andre didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that the Prism had a final protocol buried deep in its neural code. A self-defense feature I'd added months ago, in case anyone tried to steal it. A silent failsafe, programmed to activate 30 days after any unauthorized attempt to modify its core structure. And knowing Andre, he would never be able to resist messing with it, putting his name on my work. I gathered my few personal belongings under the weary eyes of security, said nothing, and walked out with my head held high. Just as I reached the front lobby, I heard Andre on the phone. "Yes, we're announcing it next month. The most advanced AI defense system ever built." He paused, laughed. "Yes, my team has been developing it in secret." I didn't look back. I didn't need to. "In 30 days, Imperium Core would throw a massive launch party. In 30 days, every major tech media outlet, every investor, every venture capital firm. It was going to be one hell of a show. But not the kind Andre was expecting. The first week was the hardest. Not because I lost my job. I had savings, I had options. No. It was watching them erase me, remove my name from my own creation as if I were nothing. They announced Prisma as a proprietary system for Imperium Core. Andre gave interviews praising their dedicated in-house R&D team. I wasn't surprised, just disappointed. Through old classmates, tech forums, and quiet contacts, I learned that Imperium Core had assigned a team of engineers to optimize Prisma. But in reality, they were groping in the dark, tweaking code they didn't fully understand, just as I had predicted. Meanwhile, my one-bedroom apartment on the Lower East Side became my command center. 3 monitors lined my desk. 1 broadcast industry news. 1 tracked Imperium Core's internal development activity, which it unwittingly transmitted over unsecured channels. The last showed Prisma's hidden diagnostic pings. I hadn't accessed its core directly. My protocol ensured I wouldn't need to. Prisma was sending me signals, confirming what I already knew. They were messing with the wrong parts of the system, breaking things they couldn't fix. And as the days passed, closer and closer to the launch event, those pings grew louder, more urgent. Andre thought he'd buried me, but he'd only planted the seed. This wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. You see, while Andre thought he had full access to Prisma, he only had what I'd allowed him to see. What I'd shown him in that conference room was a shadow version, a sandbox model with limited functionality. The real Prisma was mine. Fully encrypted, self-aware, far more advanced than anything they were messing with. "They're butchering your code," Joe said during one of our encrypted calls. He was an old friend from college, now a back-end engineer at Imperium Core, one of the few I still trusted. Andre has them working 16-hour days, renaming functions, restructuring libraries, trying to erase every trace of you from the final product. I sat back, watching my diagnostics dashboard. "Let them try," I said. Every line they changed sent me another breadcrumb. Every edit they made triggered a silent ping from Prisma's built-in failsafe. It was logging everything, every error, every deviation, and most importantly, it was adapting, just as I'd trained it to do. "But be careful," I added. "If they track you down, they won't." "I'm not stupid, Lydia," he replied with a small laugh. "But thanks." Joe wasn't my only ally. 3 days after I was fired, I got a message in Proton Mail. It was Lily Smith, a compliance officer on Imperium Core's legal team. "What they did to you wasn't just wrong, it may be illegal." I reviewed the metadata on the files and the evidence they used. The timestamps were created after your demo to Andre. I made copies discreetly. "I'll keep you updated." I thanked her and urged caution. Lily was walking a dangerous line, but the more I pieced it together, the clearer it became. This wasn't just treason. It was theft. 2 weeks after I was let go, the tech press got wind of Imperium's upcoming launch. The headlines were predictable. Imperium Core to unveil groundbreaking cybersecurity AI. CEO Andre Tremblay claims breakthrough in predictive defense. If I hadn't been so furious, I might have laughed. The same man who'd told me not to overcomplicate things was now claiming to have built an AI system using entirely in-house innovation. Back at my apartment, Prisma was monitoring everything. Every change they made to the code only strengthened their immune response. It was like watching a digital organism evolve in real time, recognizing threats, reconfiguring itself, preparing for them. "He's having a huge party," Joe informed me a few days later. Full media coverage, TechCrunch, Wired, investors, even some representatives of government security agencies. Of course it was. Prisma had the power to transform. Not just cybersecurity, but military defense, financial systems, even healthcare. That's why I designed it with strict constraints, ethical protocols that prevented offensive use or militarization. They were buried deep, embedded in the core logic, with no possibility of overriding. I doubted Andre had noticed. 3 weeks after my dismissal, my inbox pinged with a message that raised my eyebrows. Subject: "Let's talk," from Andre Tremblay. "Lydia, I hope you're doing well." After further consideration, I believe we may have acted a bit hastily. I'd like to propose a consulting opportunity. Your insights could be helpful before launch. Let's talk soon. Best regards, Andre. I almost applauded his audacity. He was falling apart. Prisma wasn't responding the way he'd hoped. There were minor bugs now, slow interface responses, cryptic log messages. Inoffensive on the surface, but enough to shake someone who was taking ownership of a system they didn't understand. And just beneath the surface, Prisma was still watching, waiting. Because what Andre didn't know was that the launch party wouldn't showcase his greatest achievement. It would expose his greatest lie. I didn't respond. 3 days later, a second email arrived. This time, they offered a 6-figure settlement, plus a consulting contract and a non-disclosure agreement. They even hinted at a possible path back to the company if I played fair again. I didn't respond. Silence, I'd learned, was more powerful than any rebuttal. And Andre's desperation confirmed what I already knew. They couldn't control Prisma. Not completely. Not anymore. It's in a tailspin. Joe texted me. Weekend shifts, daily checks. They're trying to fix bugs they don't understand. I glanced at the timer in the corner of my screen. 5 days until launch. Every night, I monitored Prisma's diagnostics. Every code fix they forced on the system made things worse. It wasn't malfunctioning. It was resisting, quietly reinforcing their mission to protect the truth, expose deception, reveal corruption. Lily reached out again. She had gathered more evidence, backdated development logs, altered timestamps, and even drafts of emails Andre had written to suggest he had started the Prisma project years ago. I have encrypted them and stored them off-site, she wrote. If anything happens, they will come out. I thanked her and reminded her to stay under the radar. Andre was cornered, and that made him dangerous. The last 72 hours had been the hardest. Not because I was afraid, but because I was ready. I knew what was coming. And watching him show off my work, boasting about the genius of his team, made my throat tighten. But I held it together. He was too arrogant to realize how close he was to detonation. The night before launch, one last email arrived in my inbox. Subject: Final offer. This time, the number had doubled mid-7 digits, along with a new clause. If I refused, Andre's legal team would ensure that I never worked in cybersecurity again. My response was short, looking forward to tomorrow's presentation. That night, I paced my apartment, my eyes scanning the displays one last time. Prisma was calm, quiet, fully prepared. The protocol was timed to launch at 2:30 p.m. sharp, exactly when Andre would take the stage for his demo. What he thought was a keynote speech was actually an activation sequence. I went to bed feeling strangely at peace. Tomorrow would either clear my name and expose the truth, or it would destroy everything I had worked for. There was no in-between. As I drifted off to sleep, my phone vibrated one last time. Joe, everything is in place. You should see Andre's face when it happens. Tomorrow will be historic. Launch day dawned bright and clear over Manhattan. I sat at my desk, coffee in hand, as Imperium Core's live stream went live. The venue was massive. Polished marble floors, chrome podiums, and floor-to-ceiling LED screens lit up with Prisma's redesigned logo, a low-rent corporate version of the one I'd scribbled in the margins of a notebook. I felt no bitterness, just focus. Industry leaders filled every row. Investors, tech CEOs, press from Wired and The Verge. Even a few representatives from government cybersecurity agencies were in attendance. Imperium Core had spared no expense. Andre took the stage, beaming with pride. He began his speech, ticking off buzzwords like proprietary, innovative, revolutionary. He had no idea that the system behind him was counting down, not to a product launch, but to a reckoning. And at 2:30 p.m. sharp, Prisma would take over. Not with chaos, not with destruction, but with truth. The champagne flowed like a river, and Imperium Core's PR team worked the crowd like seasoned entertainers. Polished, smiling assistants ushered journalists to their seats with branded briefcases and neatly packed press kits. Joe had set up a secure multi-camera feed for me. On one screen, I saw a bird's-eye view of the main conference hall. Elegant lighting, imposing displays, and the new Prisma logo glowing on every wall. Another feed gave me a close-up of Andre Tremblay pacing the stage in a tailored navy suit that probably cost more than my first apartment. He moved like a man who believed the world belonged to him, shaking hands with investors, laughing with military contractors, nodding respectfully to the SEC regulators seated in the front row. At 2:15 p.m. sharp, he took his place behind the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his microphone carrying his voice with practiced authority. "Today, Imperium Core redefines the future of cybersecurity." I glanced at my monitors. Prisma's hidden protocol was online, warming up as it scanned for core tampering, unauthorized access, and structural changes. 15 minutes. "For the past 3 years," Andre continued, "my team and I have worked tirelessly to build something unprecedented. An AI security system that doesn't just respond to threats, it anticipates them." On the LED screens behind him, Prisma's redesigned interface glimmered. I had to admit, they made it look good. But looks could be deceiving. 10 minutes. "Allow me to demonstrate Prisma's adaptive threat response," Andre said, striding confidently over to the terminal. "We've prepared a simulated cyber attack in real time." My phone vibrated. "Lily, board members confirmed. Military contractors in the front row. SEC agents here. Full house." "Perfect." Andre started the simulation, and as expected, Prisma responded with smooth precision, quarantining files, redirecting traffic, isolating malware. The crowd murmured its approval. Polite applause, raised eyebrows. Of course it worked. I built it too. 5 minutes. "And now," Andre said, gesturing proudly, "you'll see Prisma's true innovation. Its ability to learn and adapt in real time." He launched a second wave of simulated threats. Then it happened. A small window appeared in the corner of the terminal. "System alert. Core integrity check. Engaged." He tried to ignore it, minimizing the window with a practiced flick of the mouse, but Prisma was waking up. 2:30 p.m. The lights dimmed, the screens flickered, code cascaded across them like falling rain. Andre glanced back nervously. "Sorry, minor technical problem. Unauthorized modifications detected." Prisma's voice echoed through the room. Calm and steady. My own voice, digitally processed. Years younger, but unmistakably mine. "Initiating system check protocol." Andre's face drained of color. He typed commands frantically. "Access denied." Joe breathlessly whispered into my headset, "This is unbelievable. You're already trending." On the screen, Prisma's diagnostics became public. File names. Version logs. User IDs. L. Rogers, original developer. Rhodes, unauthorized access. The crowd began to murmur, confused at first, then louder as screenshots and data appeared live on the screens. "Identity verification required," Prisma continued. "Cross-referencing source code signatures, displaying source logs." Andrew stepped toward the podium microphone. There's been a misunderstanding. This was a collaborative effort." Prisma interrupted him. "False claim detected." The room fell silent. On the screens, my name appeared in bold, "System Developer, Lydia Rogers." Every timestamp, every line of code, every backdated document was exposed. And Andre, he froze. The massive screens shifted. Line after line of source code appeared. On one side, the clean, efficient architecture I had written. On the other, the clumsy, overwritten mess that Imperium Core's engineers had tried to pass off as their own. Commit histories filled the displays in real time. Timestamps, metadata, my username, my fingerprints. There was no denying it. "Primary developer now identified, Lydia Rogers," Prisma announced, calm and unwavering. "Current system compromised by unauthorized modifications initiated by Andre Tremblay." Gasps rippled through the room. Andre typed frantically at his console, trying to override the system. It was too late. Showing evidence of intellectual property theft. Then came the real blow. The screens began to display the very documents Lily had gathered. Forged development logs, files with backdated metadata, copies of my original code altered to hide their origin. Emails that Andre had thought he had deleted. Settlement offers. Draft NDAs. Each more damning than the last. "Ladies and gentlemen," Prisma continued. This system was designed with a single central directive: protect the truth and expose deception. I stared at the live feed, my heart pounding but my expression calm. The room was dissolving into chaos. The current demo has been compromised by systematic theft of intellectual property. I watched military contractors begin to get up and leave, their interest in the product clearly dead. Board members huddled in small groups, gesturing urgently. Journalists snapped photos and fired off tweets. The entire launch event, broadcast live to thousands, was falling apart. Andre exploded. "This is outrageous," he roared, his face red. "This is sabotage. A bitter ex-employee accessing original development servers." Prisma cut him off. The screens switched to video feeds. Grainy security camera footage from the Imperium core offices. There I was, hunched over my desk at midnight, debugging Prisma line by line. Then came the security access logs, with precise timestamps, showing months of after-hours work using my own equipment. Then came the final blow, a detailed changelog of every modification Andre had made, each one triggering Prisma's protocol. The more he tried to obscure my work, the more evidence he unwittingly created. System integrity compromised, Prisma declared. Initiating emergency protocols. The screens went black. Then, after a few seconds, a final message appeared in bold white letters. Prisma AI security system created by Lydia Rogers. Patent pending. The room exploded. I watched as Andre staggered back from the podium as two stern-faced board members approached him. Behind them, I spotted SEC officials already pulling out notepads and phones. They hadn't come just to watch. They'd come to investigate. My phone vibrated. "Joe, are you watching this? Andre looks like he's going to pass out." I could see it. 3 years of work, months of silence, weeks of building the trap, and now it had snapped shut, in front of an entire industry. But I wasn't done yet. I got up from my desk, smoothed my blazer, and pulled on my coat. The storm had begun, and now it was time to step out of the shadows and reclaim what had always been mine. Time for phase 2. 20 minutes later, I walked into the Imperium Corporation Conference Center, where the launch party had officially collapsed into a full-scale management crisis. Executives were shouting at each other. PR managers were trying unsuccessfully to regain control, and Andre Tremblay was cornered by angry board members and stone-faced lawyers. "Ms. Rogers," a voice called from across the room. I turned to see Tracy Chin, the quick-witted and direct CEO of Aura Secure, the largest cybersecurity company on the West Coast. She extended her hand. "I think we need to talk about Prisma's true capabilities." We found a quiet room, away from the chaos. Over the next 2 hours, I gave her a thorough demonstration not only of Prisma's security capabilities, but also of its ethical safeguards, its adaptive neural learning, and its ability to evolve without sacrificing core integrity. She understood the implications immediately. Meanwhile, I received a text from Joe. "Andre has been escorted out. Security has taken him straight through a line of reporters. His badges deactivated." That same night, Imperium Core called an emergency meeting. When the lights went out, they offered me full legal ownership of Prisma's patents, a huge settlement for the attempted theft, and a 7-figure CTO position. But I turned it all down. Tracy's offer was better. A new division under Aura Secure, built from the ground up around Prisma, with me leading it. Complete autonomy, profit sharing, creative control, and ethics. She didn't just want to use Prisma, she wanted to protect what it stood for. A year later, Prisma is the global standard in AI security, defending governments, corporations, and nonprofits, not just against external threats, but from the inside out. Its core protocol for protecting truth and exposing deception remains intact. As for Andre, the last I heard, he was facing multiple lawsuits and an SEC investigation. It turns out Prisma wasn't the only project he'd stolen over the years. And some nights, as I sit in my glass-walled corner office overlooking Midtown Manhattan, think back to that launch day. I remember the panic in his eyes, the disbelief on his face as the system turned against him. He thought he was stealing code. What he had actually unleashed was the most advanced truth detection protocol ever built. The irony, if he had been honest, if he had treated me with respect, I would have welcomed his help. But he chose greed. He chose deception. And in doing so, he weaponized my creation against himself. Today, companies don't just use Prisma to protect their data. They use it to hold themselves accountable, to prevent fraud, to track insider abuse, to stop theft before it starts. Every time it catches someone trying to steal someone else's work, I smile. Because sometimes security isn't just about protecting networks. Sometimes it's about protecting the truth. And sometimes, the quiet developer in the back corner isn't just writing code. He's writing justice. This wasn't just about stolen code or corporate sabotage. This was about standing up when someone tried to erase me. About refusing to let silence define my worth. You don't have to shout to be powerful. You don't have to play their games to win. Sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do is quietly build something they can't take away from you and let the truth speak for itself. So whether you're coding in a corner, painting in a basement, or chasing a dream no one else sees yet, don't stop. Keep building. Keep pushing. Because one day they won't just see what you've done. They'll feel what you've stood for. What did you think of Lydia's story? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed her story, please like and share it to inspire others, and subscribe to her channel for more inspiring stories.